There is a fifth dimension.
A dimension of sound.
Damn it, Frank! We tell him to be quiet. I spilled my hot cup of Uranus again.
A dimension of sight.
Hey, Arch. I'm gonna sock you in the puss.
A dimension of mind.
Nan Adams, is that you?
Next stop, the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
That's going at the end or the beginning. One or the other.
If Nick's not here,
He's editing
does
it.
that mean does that mean one of us can start the introduction?
I mean,
Can we volunteer?
yeah. I mean,
I never wanted to take Nick's place, but at some point I want to be like, hey, can I try to
Yeah, go
intro
for it.
Kind of like it reminds me of
What's that?
Smosh when they would be like,
I love
okay,
that.
it's your turn to start the video, and be like I got it.
Welcome to the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, I feel
Hey.
like
How you doing?
let's see. The production code is 2624, right?
It is.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Well, it's on Wikipedia.
I
I'm
bet.
just making sure.
If you say
No.
All right.
Alex, have at it.
Hello
Ooh.
and welcome to the Fifth Dimension podcast. Sally, our host. Nick-
Sally? Who the fuck is Sally?
Who the fuck is Sally?
Oh, you know what? We
I
just
said
fucked
I like
it up
that.
sadly.
too.
Sadly. What
She
the
went-
hell?
Wait, no, we just fucked
Hello.
it up because we said fuck several times in the first several
Okay,
seconds.
cut that.
Yeah.
Cut that. We're gonna read it. Cut it.
Okay.
Okay. So
Fuck, fuck, fuck,
I
hi,
shut my mouth for the
and
first 30 seconds.
I'm trying to start. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
All right.
What do you want to do it?
No,
Okay,
that's
you know what? I am pulling this thing. I'm pulling this podcast over, and until you guys behave yourselves, we're not going anywhere. Okay,
I
let's
guess we
go.
ain't fucking going anywhere then.
All
All right, I'm so sorry, Nick. All right, take it away, Alex.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fifth Dimension podcast. Today, we're talking about The Long Morrow, which is season 5, episode 15 of the original Twilight Zone series. It is production code 2624 and also stars Robert Lansing, Mariette Hartley, George Macready, and Edward Binns, along with, I think, probably a couple other actors
Yeah.
too.
They were some very,
But
very
those are kind of like-
well-known extras.
Those are kind of the ones that were highlighted. And also, this episode was directed by Robert Florey and written by Rod Serling.
Absolutely. And the air date on that sucker was January 10th of 64.
That was fantastic.
It was fantastical.
Oh, did-
But before we get too far in, we got to talk about the fact that we don't have Nick here tonight. Nick, we love you. We miss you.
Shit,
And
is he not here?
not at present.
I mean,
well,
otherwise, he's just very late. So,
Yeah.
and he's never late.
No.
So, Nick, we love you. We miss you. We'll look forward to seeing you back here next time.
I tried to say Sally weren't here, and then I came out as Sally, and I'm so sorry.
Sally's not
very-
here either.
Your name is not Sally, Nick.
Nick and
It's-
Sally are not here.
That's right. I mean, Sandra was in this episode, but I don't know that necessarily counts. So,
I feel like those, well, Stansfield and Sandra.
Yep.
So,
can you imagine if things would have gone differently and she could have been Sandra Stansfield?
Edward.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
Thanks.
but we'll carry into that. But first, I feel like with this episode, it goes straight into the narration starting in the opening scene, which I feel is pretty
It does.
important to kind of set up what we have ahead of us for the Long Morrow. So,
And man,
and also it's quite a long narration piece too, which is quite a
Holy shit.
choice, at least for this episode.
Yeah.
So Jake, I hope you have lots of fun reading it and don't mess it up.
or if you mess it up, just cover it and we'll take care of it in post.
No, he won't. He absolutely won't.
It's just
Okay.
it's just give him comedic material then to edit.
I didn't realize it was so long.
That's what she said.
There you go. I was waiting
Yeah.
for it.
Well, and
I'm
it's
pretty
weird.
sure you
because-
honestly you said that in the episode. Where
Probably.
you drive, you're like, holy shit, this is so long. And then cut to a week later, it's like,
1 week later.
oh, actually.
Yeah.
It is. It's split into two. Okay. Well, let's.
Yeah, and this one is
Mhm.
quite weird because I mean, there's already I won't tangent too far on this piece, but it is weird because it goes like Serling opening narration and then into
Mhm.
some some, I guess, for lack of a better term,
Exposition.
thank you, exposition, and then it goes back into more prologue and such. So it's really quite an interesting way that it does it. But and I don't remember ever hearing anything. Like there's not a lot of like there's trivia on this, but I don't think they talk about how like the narration is kind of, or the opening narration is kind of split the way it does with a lot of other episodes. Yeah.
It doesn't happen often. Okay, let's do this shit.
All right,
Take 10 minutes.
take it away.
It may be said with a degree of assurance that not everything that meets the eye is as it appears. Case in point, the scene you're watching. This is not a hospital, not a morgue, not a mausoleum, not an undertaker's parlor of the future. What it is the belly of a spaceship. It is en route to another planetary system, an incredible distance from the Earth. This is the crux of our story. A flight into space. It is also the story of the things that might happen to human beings who take a step beyond, unable to anticipate everything that might await them there, out there. The narration continues after Stansfield is informed that his journey into space will take 40 years.
That's probably a good point to kind of sit down and talk a little bit about what the first half of this episode is kind of talking about. So Stansfield is an astronaut he's 31 at that point, and he's been tasked by Bixler, who is a scientist / inventor / head guy in charge of something that they found this planet 140 light years away, and they are going to send him as a one-man operation to go check out the planet and then do the thing and then come back, and he'll be in suspended animation, which the way they describe it, I mean, the technical terms may not be exact, but they seem to do a pretty solid job of kind of hitting on that. But
science in there.
Yes, absolutely. And at this point so it's kind of told as like, I guess, flashback at this point.
It has like the Arthur flashback dissolve.
Yes. I feel bad though, because I think like the Wayne's World, diddle-a-loop would have done better with that.
Absolutely, yeah. Would have added a little bit of flair to it.
It's the 60s.
I mean, I was
they had to be
focused on his
groovy
Flash Gordon
somehow.
silver underwear.
That comes later.
But
And we do see him where it starts, where he's in a giant block of ice. He's kind of a Stanfield-sicle. Or, well, it's got ice on the outside of it, I think.
Oh, yeah,
so it's kind of a cryo chamber thing. Yeah. Aliens, this is not.
Plexiglass kind of sarcophagus.
Yes. I'm trying to think where I apologize. I'm trying to think where the narration comes back in. He does the exposition kind of telling us about his general state of things.
Oh, well, then the narration
it's with the
continues after
reveal.
Stansfield is informed that his journey into space will take 40 years.
All right, then, back into the narration.
Commander Douglas Stansfield, astronaut, a man about to embark on one of history's longest journeys, 40 years out into endless space, and hopefully back again. This is the beginning, the first step towards man's longest leap into the unknown. Science has solved the mechanical details, and now it's up to one human being to breathe life into blueprints and computers, to prove once and for all that man can live half a lifetime in the total void of outer space, 40 years alone in the unknown. This is Earth. Ahead lies a planetary system. The vast region in between is the Twilight Zone.
Nice. That is some quality reading. I think Serling would be quite proud.
Thank you, Matt.
I was gonna say I'd hope Nick was proud of that.
I would say that he should be.
Who knows?
You spoke it well. We're quite proud of you.
Spoke it well. Use my mouth real good.
So at this point, after a good solid couple of minutes of narration and exposition that kind of brings us up to speed, what did you guys kind of think this?
Mark.
Yeah, exactly. What did you guys kind of feel like the route was taking, or what route we were taking with this before we get into the rest of things? Like, what, I don't remember this episode myself. I guess that's a good question to start with. Like, were you familiar with this episode at all?
No.
I was like, what don't you get about Nick not being here? I mean, honestly, it took me a minute to realize what was happening. At least because I recognized the actors, but I didn't necessarily remember the plot. You know what I mean? Like there was that like visual familiarity at least.
Yeah.
And I guess it was kind of funny too because with You Drive, when I was listening to the episode of you guys talking about it, I only remembered it specifically because of the scene where the guy turns himself into the police, which is very different than I guess when it comes to this episode where I was like, oh, it does feel familiar, but I don't necessarily know where it's going, which is kind of nice for a rewatch. But yeah, I don't know. I wasn't able to really like predict where it was going because of it.
I made the mistake of trying to look stuff up beforehand, so I kind of knew what what was happening before I meant to see what was happening. So
Tisk tisk.
yeah, I know. It is actually based off of an O. Henry book called The Gift of the Magi, which is the kind of classic tale of there's a guy that saves up his money, or he tries to save up his money, but he ends up pawning his watch to get his wife a hair comb, and I think that's what it is, right?
That seems real familiar. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I read the first bit of it.
Wait, what were you referring to? One of the other episodes?
Yeah, no, Gift of the Magi is a well-known story, and I think I think this is the right one.
Yeah, yeah.
So the
Short
original
story.
story is kind of based on a Christmas story about like the one guy, like it's a husband and wife. So the wife buys her husband, she cuts her hair off to buy her husband a watch chain, and he sells his watch to buy his wife a hair comb. So ultimately they sacrificed for each other, but ultimately they both gave up the things that they loved to be able to give to each other. So
Yeah, and it ends on a freeze frame of them going.
yep.
Yeah, that story is quite familiar to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty well trod territory.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I mean, even I wouldn't have known offhandedly that this was Gift of the Magi, that it was based off that, but it's certainly like reading that you can certainly say, oh yeah, that's definitely that there's some definite or some similarities between the two. So
I do love how the Twilight Zone is like, hey, let's take this familiar story, but get this. We're gonna put it in space. In space.
Oh my
Space.
god.
It would be like all the like men in the writers' room, I'm sure would be like, holy shit, you're a genius.
Yes.
Space?
That's what we gotta do.
Flipping space?
Yeah,
It's perfect.
space.
You've done it.
Because that's how I feel with
Season
like
6
Probe
is
7
greenlit.
being pitched. Like when they did Probe 7 over and out, it's like, okay, guys, we can't just do a story of Adam and Eve. That's so silly. We're the
Yes.
Twilight Zone.
Adam and
So
Eve
obviously we have to put it in space
in space.
Exactly.
with an astronaut.
Absolutely. Because
And an
anything less
alien
being that
lady
this
who
is
may
space
not
race.
be alien.
Exactly. Being that
Yeah.
this is space race time in history, guys, we can't do less, even though we don't know this is space race time yet.
Yeah.
I guess
I'm
I
sure
did know it's space
I'm
race.
sure viewers watching were like, hey, give us some space here.
Like
There's
you
too
knew it
much
was space
space.
race.
We
I don't
need
know if it was
space
called
from the
space.
space.
Yes.
Maybe.
It may have been called Space Jam.
Yep. Space Zone.
Jam.
Space Jam. Space Ham. Space Ham.
Better than Spice Tam. Spam?
Spam. I like spam. Spam's
I like
good.
spam.
Fried spam.
Represent.
Yes. Just don't do it with mac and cheese, because when the grease and the fake cheese hit, oof, that's not so good. Maybe it was just a bad meal I had once.
I have put spam in mac and cheese.
Ah.
I think there's a way to make that
It's for our
good.
culinary podcast.
No, I don't doubt it. Anyway, back to your
dimension.
Exactly. 6 levels of Twilight Zone somehow leads to cooking. We're not 100% sure how, but hey. So from here, so we have, Mr. I'm going to spend 40 years in space and not age more than a couple of weeks. And then
I didn't say if I knew what was going to happen or not.
Oh, I apologize. Please let us know.
Right over.
You said yet, and I thought that was kind of the end all be all of what you had to say.
Give your answer.
You asked if I remembered it.
True. I apologize.
Didn't remember it. But did I
Please.
know where it was going from this opening part with him laying in his Flash Gordon underwear and going out into space 40 years? No, I had no idea where it was going. But I knew it was in space. And I
Yes.
like space. And I like space episodes.
I was gonna say that's totally your jam. And
Yeah.
like it's a very like not closeted, it's a very close-knit God's sake. It's a very small episode. Like there's not a lot of stuff that goes
Almost
on.
single location.
Yeah, basically. And I know that's also your jam.
Yeah, like single location in
Yes.
space and single locations in space. Oh, even better.
That's that sweet spot for Jake. It's all like mwah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Woohoo.
yeah, I didn't know. I had no idea where it was going at that point. But I was like, okay, I'm on board.
At
Let's
this
do this
point,
shit.
it's good to know that everybody was on board with this one.
Yeah.
So we get Mr. gonna spend a lot of time alone in space, 40 years, but he's not gonna age more than a couple weeks because of the wonders of science. And
Science.
that's when he meets the love of his life. It was a random office meeting where he was helping her pick up her papers, and then flirtation began from a man that had a heart of ice. Not really,
Mhm.
but
But you knew there was a connection immediately because there was romantic music.
oh, is that how you tell? My God, I
Duh.
wouldn't have guessed that. Did you guys also notice? And I don't know if it was maybe like just the camera angle was weird, but like the shot on her was very like soft and kind of like blurry on the edges, but it was very sharp on him.
Maybe
Oh yeah, that was very. I mean, that was very common for that time period.
And I'm not
Was that
sure.
Like
kinda
play into that.
ethereal, kind of angelic.
It's kind of what
and
the
him
thought
kind of
was.
hard-edged.
Yeah, that's kind of what my thought was, but I wasn't sure if it was a case of, I mean, for a lot of that stuff, it's done on purpose. There just wasn't a lot of trivia on that specifically, so normally they'll make note of that. So I might not have just looked in the right place. But no, I thought that was a really interesting touch. All that was missing was the Romeo and Juliet theme.
I didn't catch that. I watched this on my phone at work, so probably not the best screen.
It's all right. As long as
watched
you
it,
weren't
though.
driving while watching it.
No, I wasn't driving this time. It was just a slow day at work, so I sat at my
Honestly,
desk and watched it.
I will say with that initial like love at first sight interaction, I just liked that I got my meet cute.
Oh yeah, and
It
that's
took a few episodes, but you know what? It happened.
you're right.
And that's what I was saying with Probe 7. I'm like, I just want the chemistry. And I felt it. And this they both made moves. I was like, okay, you just met a couple minutes ago, but like, you know what? I'm here for it.
It was love at first sight.
Absolutely.
I will say that about that is something I did notice serious for a moment. The chemistry between these two was really good. Like I believed it, I felt it, and like they had such a limited amount of time to sell you on. I mean, the whole show's limited amount of time, but to sell you on the feelings that these two human beings have for each other, I think they did a really good job of it. Because if that didn't work, not to jump the shark, but if that didn't work, the ending isn't going to work.
No,
I don't think the
It'd
whole
just be kinda
episode
like,
would have
wah,
worked.
wah. Yeah, if you didn't believe their
Yeah.
chemistry, if you didn't believe that these two just like had that love at first sight kind of just super connection, it would. I mean, the story would still be there, but it would not have been nearly as impactful.
No.
So I think they did a really good job there.
100% agreed. They did a good job with it, and even we don't obviously get a lot of background on who Stansfield is, and kind of you just kind of get the idea. Okay, he's a 31-year-old astronaut, clearly driven by career, as they would have been at that time. You
Kinda
know,
cold.
singular focus and all that good stuff. I mean, again, as you would
Kind
about
of get the
expect.
idea he doesn't like people too, because like when they talk about, I can't remember the specific verbatim what they said, but more or less, hey, you're going to be alone for 40 years. We thought of you. We figured you'd be okay with that. And he was like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But even the scientist was kind of that way. He's like, well, be comfortable, but there's no place to sit, so you know.
Well, there was a mention of him being an astronaut for like he had like an 11-year tenure before this like extensive mission.
Yeah.
Because I know the guy initiating this particular like 40-year mission was like, hey, like we've done some observations on you fairly recently, which makes me think that like he at least was like there for a while and at least had like a reputable sort of resume to where you know the guy was probably like, okay, like you know, I can just trust this guy.
Yeah.
He
And
was
I'm
like,
sure,
hey, do you want to be on the payroll? You want to get hired? He was like, all right, sold. I was like, okay.
I'm sure too, like, you know, even back then they would have done like the psychological exams and, you know, all that kind of stuff just to make sure. And I guess being an astronaut, you would anticipate that they probably would have gone through that beforehand too. But for this kind of a thing, I'm sure that either subtly or outrightly, they probably did all the tests to make sure, hey, you're going to be 40 years in space. You're going to come back and the world you knew isn't going to be here. So,
Well, I think that's in part why they mentioned too how they explored kind of around the solar system that they're familiar with. And so then it was like, okay, we're going to put you on this more extensive mission that's this long because of it being on an entirely different planetary system.
What
Because I
didn't it
remember the
start
guy
in,
like questioning, being like, "Oh, like what does this image show here, and and then let me show you this one." And they both looked kind of similar, but then it was like that was just kind of the vibe where I was like, "Okay, so you're going to a place that's just a little more unknown than what you've already become a bit familiar with." So
right.
Did it start in 1988?
It did. Oh,
That's where it
87.
is. 87?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
And then
he
it
comes
was
back
when did he come back? Though? Was that
2013,
he would have come back in
98, 2008,
17.
18, 28,
Yeah.
2028.
Wow. A couple years ahead of us.
No, look at that. That's a first.
Yeah, no doubt. The distant future of 1972.
Yeah, they'll usually be like, it's in the future, 1996. That didn't age well.
Well, and I'm sure looking at it from 64, you go, okay, this is what, we're making good progress here. By 87, we should be able to send people into deep space.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
That happened.
And I kind of wonder with the timings that they use, so like 140 light years being able to travel 70 times faster than the speed of light, like if those numbers, like in the first couple episodes, there was the distance between, was it Earth and the sun or Earth and something else? I wonder how close that was to kind of how things rolled there.
If it's incorrect, if we mention those numbers here, someone will correct us.
Absolutely.
I found that out with a review I did years ago where I was talking about some people that were going somewhere, I don't know, a specific place. And I said, I just like flippantly threw out like, there are a million, this, that, or the other. And people are like, actually, that's only this far away. I was like, shut up. Just saying, they're far away. Shut up. Anyway, I got that like a lot of people came into my comments saying that. So
Vague is best.
I don't talk distance.
You don't talk distantly either.
No.
You are up in that mic.
I do not.
So after our lovely man and his lovely lady meet up, they've met for 3 hours, but they know that each other is the one, and they have the rough conversation of, well, how's this gonna work?
Younger man, older woman. It could work.
There's not a lot of options for long distance IMing or anything like that.
Well, initially it was perceived to be the opposite of what's shown at the end of the episode.
Well, because she talks about being when they're sitting there talking, she says, "Well, look for me. I'll be."
Oh, wait, no, I realized Jake actually said the right thing, and I flipped it. So that's my bad.
No worries. I kind of
like, yeah, but I guess initially there was that thing where it's like, oh, when he comes back, it's like he'll be like, well, was it perceived that like he wasn't gonna be frozen for 40 years?
A few weeks.
Yeah.
They say, yeah, he'd only age by like a few weeks or months or something like that. Not even a year.
Oh, okay.
So he would still be 31.
That's what I got confused by at first, because I was like, oh, maybe he's being frozen for the actual for some of it, but then not for.
Well, on the way there and on the way back.
So
I see.
While he's there, he does whatever he's there to do, which I'm not really clear on.
Okay, so yeah, when you're talking age difference, Stansfield was 31 and Sandra was 26 at that point. And they, as we've talked about, they had the conversation that, well, when you come back, I will be the little old lady with the crocheted like shawl thing, and you'll be a young hunk. I'll be your cougar, basically.
Young hunk. Well, love is blind or whatever. Love doesn't know numbers. I'm 11 years older than my wife.
But that's not 40.
25 years older. My dad's 25 years older than his wife.
At that age, but there's always that, and I know this is not really a point to this, but like there is that thing where you get to a certain age and it's weird. Like it can be weird, like if you're talking like 30-year-old and 70-year-old, but which I guess is sort of what this would be.
I feel like you're saying old in my case. And
no, I'm not.
I mean, when you get that old, who gives a shit?
Very true.
It's fine.
I promise you, your skin is not going to fall off anytime soon. I think you're fine.
I hope not. Jesus Christ. What?
I don't know. Sorry.
How did we get here?
I took a left turn at.
Skin's falling off. We're going all Hellraiser.
Yep, that's where we all end up. Pain and pleasure, mostly pain.
Nick, hell.
Okay.
Well, there's a sort of emotional pain at the end of the episode, though. I mean, that's kind of bittersweet, but it's also just like, damn, I didn't think I'd feel like depressed tonight after watching it.
It definitely came to that.
I expected there to be like something like that would. I mean, I guess we'll get to it when we get to like the end, which really isn't much between there and the end, honestly. But yeah, it stuck to it. It like, presented you with a thing and you're like, okay, yeah, but there's going to be something. Nope, there's not. They're just going with that.
Yeah, they absolutely did.
No redemption there.
Well, and I guess that's probably the thing to do, is just to kind of get to that. So they fast forward. We see Attack kind of talking about how they find this like wandering spaceship. They pull it down and we find out that it is 40 years in the future, or roughly 40 years in the future.
I guess I guess we I don't know if we ever really said, which, I mean, anybody who's watching this watch the episode, but the whole time, like all we're getting the narration from Stanson. Is that his name?
Stansfield. Yeah, Stansfield.
Like, I think we briefly said it, but it's like his narration over him in this box, like that we presume he's frozen on the journey.
Yeah.
And he's telling about how he's going to be frozen. That's their conundrum. He's going to be frozen for 40 years. And when he gets back, like we said, she'll be 61. He'll be 31 or whatever it was. 21. I don't know. Whatever.
She'll be 66. He'll be 31.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they pick up his ship. Go on.
So then they pull everything back down. We don't see him. But one other thing to mention, sorry, tangenting back, you see as he's doing his exposition on, the fact that he is having thoughts and, pondering things despite being unconscious. You do see the timing change. So it goes from January to April and so on and so forth for a bit as he's doing that. So we come back, the ship gets pulled down, and this is all kind of on the side, you don't see it. But there's a note in this file that they're supposed to contact Sandra, and they're like, oh, is she an old lady? It's like, no, she was in a hibernation chamber, and if she's still alive, they can meet.
If she's still alive.
Yeah, no, that's what they said. Well, and I'm sure if it was experimental tech or something could have gone wrong.
Oh, that's right. They were like, oh yeah, I think she's in the basement. Go check that out. Hope somebody didn't unplug that.
Hopefully the janitor didn't unplug something. Would have been a hell of a thing. But and obviously so she decided that she was going to take it upon herself to be young for him because she loved him so much. And she's met by is it Colonel Binns? I think is the guy's name.
Military man.
Yeah, military, like the head military guy. I think it's Binns is his last name.
Well, that's the real actor's last name, I think.
Gosh.
It's General Walters.
Yes, I think
General
you're right.
Buttface?
And then the doctor was Dr. Bixler.
Yes.
The one who was at the beginning.
So Walters meets up with Sandra and says, well, funny story. I'm gonna keep this short and sweet, but after they had very sporadic communication, we lost track of him. He definitely made it there and made it back, but 6 months after leaving Earth, he decided to get out of the cryogenic sleep and basically age with the ship, or age naturally as he rolled along. And he comes back and they have their follow-up meet cute, and he is basically 71 years old.
Yeah. And she's the same age.
Yep.
26 or whatever she was.
Thereabouts, yeah.
That's
at this point, what did you guys think of like when this was revealed?
I guess I had quite a few questions, but I guess it was more about the questioning of if they knew that he like unsuspended himself from this frozen chamber.
They didn't know.
So to say, then like if they were aware that they didn't
don't
know
think
that he
they-
did
They
it.
knew
I
that
don't-
communication went down, and that's why they said they didn't know, is because they said like shortly after leaving, like right after he left, there was a malfunction with his communication, so they haven't had any communication. They just know he got there and he came back. They
Yeah.
didn't know he took himself out until he got back, and they were
Oh, I
like,
thought they
"What the fuck are you
mentioned
doing,
that
old?"
like. Well, I thought maybe he got out of it to then have better communication with them.
No, there was something
Yeah.
wrong
Yeah,
with
he-
the ship communications themselves. So they might have had a
Yeah.
beacon that said where it
Oh.
was, or it's
Yeah, that's
implied.
separate.
Yeah,
The communications thing was separate from him just making the decision that I don't want to come back and
Okay,
be too young
okay.
for her. I want
Yeah,
to.
that's. Mm-hmm.
I'm willing
Yeah,
to
that's my bad.
make the
I thought I
sacrifice.
saw
of-
them in tandem
Yeah,
for whatever
be
reason.
alone for 40 years and probably drive
Yeah.
myself fucking insane so that I
Yeah.
could be with this woman.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and he outrightly says, "You're all I thought of for 40 years," which, based on a 3-hour, date and the implications of that, man,
She's
oof.
yeah, she good.
Like it's romantic as hell, but it's also, it's so, yeah. But
Yeah, that sucks.
Well, I think
so
maybe they. It seemed like they were together for a little bit before he departed, though.
true. That is true. They did have their time, and I'm sure that they probably spent every possible moment together.
Was it
Mhm.
long? I thought it was only like a day.
No,
Was it longer than
the
that?
thing is, they went out to dinner and declared their
Yeah.
love to each other on the same day. But this was like months before he even went on the ship.
Okay. I
Yeah.
thought he was leaving the next day, which that would seem kind of abrupt.
I'm sure the training too and getting all the stuff in place, but yeah, they didn't have a long time. But yeah, you're right. I apologize. They had more than like that 3-hour stretch, but so that's good that he had a little bit more to
3-hour
work with
tour.
than
Mhm.
just that bit. So
Well, I guess the questioning was like, well, I don't know. I guess more of it came from just how they like subverted that expectation of like what made them want to ultimately have it be a little more, I guess, like bittersweet versus like the episode I was thinking about was the trade-ins
oh yeah,
with
100%.
like how there was that sort of debate about like staying young and then in a way like having that be I don't remember how exactly it was in the trade-ins with like their youth.
Only
but
one
other-
of them was going to get to change.
They only
and-
had enough money for the one.
Yeah,
So
and he told her
Yeah,
to
but
go
I
ahead
think it
and-
was
oh, no, him
but
to
was
go
it like
ahead.
they would but like when you became more youthful, did you just stay as that youthful self?
I think you
Is that
still
established
age.
in the episode? Like it was more immortalized, or did you still like naturally age?
You still naturally
I don't
aged at
remember-
that point.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was kind of like they don't outrightly say it, but it would essentially be like a clone body or something like that.
But
Oh,
they didn't
okay.
like look at each other the same
Right.
anymore. Like she was kind of, and he
Yeah,
was all
but
like,
mhm.
and then, but
Mhm.
love shone through, and he switched back out.
Yeah. But
That
I
was a
know
good
in that
episode.
episode, it's like they preferred to. What made that episode, at least the trade-ins, bittersweet to me was the ending, which is what I remember the most out of it. Was just the fact that they decided to be old and then like grow old together.
Yeah.
Um.
Well, they'd already
So
grown
I guess
old, but
yeah,
grow older.
but I guess my curiosity was just like them almost having this more somber outcome for the two of them, where it's like surprise, like they had the same technology on Earth that they could use for her given the situation,
Right.
which wasn't necessarily established, and then he ends up subverting their expectations by going against the actual, like suspended animation situation, and then comes back, and then it's like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
know, it's like it's kind of sad
Oh, it is
to
very.
think about in that way, because
So
I think it's just one of those things where it's like, I guess it's more realistic as far as like what could happen in this sort of situation. But I just wonder, I guess, where like maybe it comes from. At
I got
least
two
like if you're
questions.
writing the episode.
First of all, did either of you see that coming?
You knew
I
that there
didn't
was
know.
going to be something. Well, and actually, we should probably finish out the rest of the story just to kind of finish out before we kind of get into more kind of questiony things real quick. So
Sure.
so they meet up real quick. So they meet up. They have their long glance at each other. He is aged. She is the same age as she was before. It turns out that like 6 months after, or a couple of years after he goes, they figure out that they have the technology to figure out that there's nothing on this planet. So he kind of went away, and it was kind of all for naught. But at the time they didn't know that. And he basically tells her, hey, I'm 71. I don't want to do this to you. And she's, of the mindset that, they can make it work. And he very sternly says, no, I don't want to do this to you. And she walks away.
Was she of that mindset? She didn't give a lot of pushback on that.
And that is one thing in the reviews that it's like, why didn't she kind of fight more for it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did that was one of my questions. Like, he was like, no, this isn't gonna,
Mm-hmm.
I'm old, you're young, of course not gonna work.
Yeah.
Bye. She's
That's
like,
like,
and she
'cause
left.
like the only difference was that the roles reversed, like the expected roles
Yeah.
reversed. So if he were hypothetically young and she was that older woman, then it's like, I don't know, it's like, would that then change like how they decide to
I wouldn't
potentially
think so.
carry on a relationship? Or
Because
like, was
usually
there expectation of like, oh, like we'll both be young, so it won't be that big of a deal?
I'm gonna say that you usually see, I mean, people can say what they will about it, but quite honestly, when you see like an age gap in relationships in like
Mhm.
the real world, it is usually
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
man is older than the woman.
Yeah.
And that's probably because typically, honestly, men mature slower than
Right.
women do. So that probably has something to do with it. But you usually do see older men with younger women. Not saying all men, but I mean, you usually see it go that way. So I would think that would actually societally work better.
Even then, yeah. I mean, because you would, not to say 40 years, but, like you would have that thing where, like how many other episodes have we seen where there's someone in their 30s and they've married someone in their early 20s? Like that's kind of that, it's not, like you said, outside the box for that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, throughout human history, you see older, like even way back when there were more arranged marriages, you saw older men marrying younger women, like much younger for a
yeah.
while there. But
Well, it's a
you just,
virile thing. And,
yeah, you've seen older. It's typically the male's usually the older one. So I was kind of surprised that they were gonna say, oh, it would work the other way, but not this way. I don't know.
and it might have been too just that,
He didn't want to take that from her, maybe. I don't know.
no, I think so too. That would be my thought on the subject. I mean, even if you want to go back to the fact that, I mean, it was a doomed romance. They knew what they were getting into at, before he went up.
Yeah.
There was no question about where things would end up.
So did either of you see it coming?
Not her walking away.
Well, no, I mean like the
whole
the
thing.
reverse of him being old and her being young.
I
knew there
didn't,
was-
I didn't anticipate it because they didn't seem to, because I feel like kind of what you like referenced earlier about like jumping the shark. Like I felt like we just leaped past a bit of the exposition, even though we got like a pretty decent amount of exposition towards like in the beginning about the
Mhm.
actual mission. Like I felt like I felt like at that point I was missing something in the plot, at least to me. Like if it felt like there could have been maybe something that implied that, maybe this mission may or may not work, or maybe they had that technology that wasn't just experimental specifically onto him, but something that they could use for other people. But I'm not super sure. I mean, even with the technology they had on the suspended animation, it's like, I mean, they could have even had it like in the middle of like the 40-year journey where like maybe Sandra was getting older, but then decided to maybe be like, hey, if you do have this like technology still, or if it's more advanced than it was when you sent Stansfield up, like I would be open to trying it or something. Like, I don't know. Like I feel like there was just a bit of, I guess, like background or context to it that I wish was there.
Agreed. I honestly kind of thought that they were going to have him come back and his mom had, or her, like Sandra had gotten married and had kids, and her daughter or granddaughter would have been the one to get with Stansfield. That was kind of where I thought it was going.
Oh,
Like
kinda
he
a
sees
That
her.
sounds like a
Man
Blake
kinda thing.
Lively movie.
Yeah, 100%. 50 or 60
What
years
was it,
early.
like The Age of Adeline or something, where there was something to that movie too, right? Where it was like, I think Blake Lively's, I haven't seen the movie, but I'm pretty sure it's Blake Lively's character doesn't age, but then the people around her do. Is that
That's what
correct?
happened in Bicentennial Man.
And Benjamin, but well, no, I guess Benjamin
He was
Button
in love
ages
with the
backwards.
Yeah.
girl, but he ended up marrying or entering a relationship with her great granddaughter.
Or
looked
no,
just like
Walter
her.
Jameson was also
Yeah,
kind of a similar vibe. Yeah.
sure loves that.
Oh yeah.
actually.
Oh yeah, I love that one. It's
Mhm.
fantastic.
Well, even that episode had the age difference, but it wasn't really
Yeah,
like, you
it
kind of knew
wasn't.
that he was already like kind of weird, but then it was like, that's just how it goes, and the dad's kind of
Yeah.
cool with it, but maybe sus about it. We don't know. But I guess that's part of the plot. So
Yeah. Well, and I
Why
think
not?
it was I think with that one it was more a case of like he didn't necessarily know everything about him, maybe. Like he was a
Yeah.
little bit
Mhm.
that way. Or there's that dad intuition.
Once they
I
showed
guess
her,
so.
or once they said she's been in a pod asleep, I was like, he's gonna be old.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know it before that, but when they said, "Oh yeah," and they revealed to us that she had been in a cryogenic pod or whatever, I was like, "Oh, something happened." I bet like something went wrong with his, and he actually aged or some shit. And it wasn't that he chose to come out, so they made it a little bit more noble. But yeah, as soon as they showed her being young, I was like, "This ain't how Twilight Zone goes.
No.
They're not gonna have their happy ending like that." Now, I mean, if they waited to the very
Yeah.
end and like she popped up and it's like, "Oh, I was in a crowd," that could have been their twist. But no, since they were telling us that early on, well, a few minutes before the end, I was like, "No, this ain't the twist.
No.
Twist is his
Mhm.
ass is old." Sure enough, he
Yeah.
was.
Like, I
I
feel
do have a
like the
question. Alex said
uh,
something that made me wonder. I didn't think of this at the time, but
I
okay, he
wonder
took
what I
himself
said.
out. Took himself out of the pod. Great, cool, super noble, love it. What did he eat and drink for 40 fucking years?
But it's funny you mentioned that.
I
That's
mean,
another thing.
astronaut ice cream, duh.
Well, I mean,
What
He
I'm
else?
assuming they
He licked the
expected him to
ice
be
off the
asleep.
inside. He licked the ice
Oh.
off the inside of the pod.
We didn't see that where he's just up there going.
Exactly. I had to practice up, No, that's one of the things that's brought up in the reviews is from the kind of practical perspective. Like
Yeah.
there's no way you're shut up in an incredibly tight space for 40 years. 20 years one way, 20 years the other. You again, the food thing, just generally like all of that stuff.
Sanity.
Yeah, all that
She
stuff.
kept him sane. Their love.
That's incredible, but I
Giving Notebook.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely. Only they don't get to dance under the the light of Mars or something,
True.
which is sad. But
I mean, I don't think we're supposed to think of that.
no,
It's
but it is a question to ask though.
Yeah.
And it's
I
a fair one.
yeah, and that's not really a complaint. That was just something that popped up. I was like, "Oh, that is a good question." But I mean, as far as like the actual episode stuff, the only thing I didn't really like, and I hate it, but I took note of was how, and I already mentioned it. You said someone else mentioned it. She just didn't give a lot of pushback. He was like, "No, go. This isn't going to work." She's like, "All right, well, I tried." Like she's just out.
She's like, I'm
"Now that you say so."
26. I ain't getting any younger now.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if
Look
it's
at
a
it.
case of like where, it's one of those things where the 60s I could see going this way. Maybe she was a person that could be like, he said the final word, I'm going to respect the decision because he spent 40 years in freaking space.
Yeah, but she also spent 40 years
True.
frozen.
That's very true. And that was another thing that was brought up in the reviews too, was the fact that they focus like the Walters goes on and on about how noble Stansfield is, but he doesn't
like a premium on love. Like he had a premium on love or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wanted to ask about that because I was like, that wording was kind of interesting.
Yeah, she
And
definitely gave up
I
some
don't
stuff.
know.
But I mean,
yeah.
she does. I'm gonna say she came out on top because she kind of gave up family and all that, which he would have as well, and like her current life. She's still got a life to live. Not saying he has no years left, but I mean, he has considerably. He has 40 less.
I
than
mean,
she
he
does.
can live up to 100 though.
120,
It is
actually.
1988, so maybe he
Yeah.
could live even longer.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Or no,
Absolutely.
2028 at this point, I guess.
So, you know, he could
They
just
might
be
have immortality by
he
then.
can just be of old age for like
They had a pill
however
for
much
that.
longer, I guess.
I'm gonna die. You take a pill.
You know what? They did the technology from the trade-ins. So he
Yeah.
can just go, trade in his body. I mean, he's got 40 years of
That's
back
true.
pay. If he's not able to live it up at that point,
Yeah.
that's
Dude
that's
better
not
be
even
getting
fair.
paid.
Yeah, he's like
Mm.
Fry from Futurama, like $1 billion. Or
I was
something.
gonna reference Futurama because like I know the whole premise is built on just that cryogenic shit, like working to a point where he's like, oh, this isn't what I'm familiar with. This is different.
Exactly. And unfortunately, since Nick isn't here, we don't have a Treehouse of Horror reference. So the closest thing I'm going to be able to get is to say
Oh.
Futurama.
You know what? It's
I don't
same
think there is
creator
a
and all.
reference to this episode.
Probably
There's
not.
always a reference.
I think it's like
to
I think
Treehouse of
Treehouse of
Horror.
Horrors is like I think it's more of those like classic like pinnacle Twilight Zone episodes where they're like
and
giving
Touched by
nods
an
to
Angel.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, hey, you know what? If a series runs at that long in any way, shape, or form, you're going to get references to damn near everything. So, I would also like to mention the makeup that they had for Stansfield was
Mhm.
My
really
God. It was very like theater.
oh,
to me.
100%. But the
I
lighting
was
worked
like-
with it kind of too. I thought,
I think it works because it is like black and white.
yeah,
I think it was really
I
good
think
for
with the-
1964 TV.
Yeah. I'm like
I'll say that.
honestly for that era of television, I'm like, you know what? Sure, go off.
I'm just
But
thinking like
I don't know,
like
it's-
Cliffordville.
yeah.
Like that's kind of what I'm comparing it
Oh
to.
God. Why does
Oh,
that
the Orson
episode
Welles makeup
just
guy?
have to
Yeah.
exist? My God.
in the sphere of Twilight Zone like old age makeup, this is one of the better examples.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'll go with that.
That's kind of all I can say.
legit.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say to answer Jacob's question. I was gonna say that I think where the logic behind him surviving for 40 years ultimately on a spacecraft may not make sense in this sort of setup is just because they establish it as more contemporary and then have it to where he comes back in a more futuristic setting. Whereas I feel like at least for episodes like Elegy or on Thursday we leave, well, maybe not on Thursday we leave for home, but on a few of those like other like heavy like we're traveling in space to an unknown planet kind of vibe, I do feel that they exist in such a distant future where it comes across as potentially plausible for space exploration to almost be treated in a similar way that you would like fly on an airplane from place to place
That's fair.
on like a planet, right? So I think in that way it's like if you make something so like fantastical in that sort of regard, then it's like okay, like I can imagine them having plenty of supplies and fuel for whatever they need to do, but it's not necessarily something that I guess is sort of contemplated on in this way enough to where it's like, I mean, I can see him maybe being like, oh, hey, this is going to be like, I don't know, a 20-year mission or something. And like, maybe he comes back and her life is just very different because she almost grieved the loss of this person almost. Because, I mean, what was even the likelihood of him coming back alive potentially given sort of the circumstances of said space mission? But yeah, I don't know. I think just the setting and how they deliver, like at least the ending of the episode definitely made me feel, I don't know, a little bit puzzled. Like it didn't leave me in a place where I was like content to be like, okay, I'll carry on to the next episode. I think kind of like what you guys have mentioned, at least with this episode, it's left me to be like, I have a couple of questions, but also I might need a break. I need to watch something a little happier for a minute, and I'll be right back.
Yeah,
Left me with,
I don't know.
damn. That's it.
that's a good thing
Damn.
to kind of leave it
I-
on. In
Yeah,
that
well,
respect.
I'm not saying it had to have a happy ending. A lot
No.
of Twilight Zone
Mm-mm.
episodes don't have happy endings. but there was just like this,
Like it
and I'm
felt,
not
it
saying
didn't
this
sit
even as
well
a
with me,
negative.
like how
It
off I
was
felt, I guess.
kind of left in the air.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you got the twist and all that, and I think that was what they were trying to do, say ultimately.
Hmm.
Like Trivet said with the story that it's loosely based on the comb and the watch. These two people give up, something very important to them in different ways, and it doesn't work. It conflicts. They got that across, but I don't know. It's just like after it's over, it just kind of ends there and leaves it. And it's like, man, this is
Yeah.
depressing for her. It's depressing for him. It's depressing for me. It's just kind of like,
Yeah.
it leaves me with nothing. And I mean, I don't mind
Yeah.
a downer of an episode, but damn.
It is
No,
kind
yeah,
of an
that's pretty
outlier.
much what I was like. That pretty much was like, at least that I
But
was trying to say or
yeah,
articulate.
Yep.
But
but I
yeah,
kind of
that's,
liked
I
it
don't
for
know.
that because I wasn't
Hmm.
expecting that. Even when I realized,
Yeah.
okay, they just juxtapose, they're switching it up. She's gonna be young, he's gonna be old. I didn't expect it to just end like that and be like, I expected it to come in and it was kind of like, oh no, and you
Mhm.
think that's gonna happen,
Yeah.
and then they get the whole, it's okay, you know what? Because our love
Yeah.
is, eternal, endless, and all this and that,
Mhm.
and yada yada yada, and they walk off, and Rod comes on and says something cheeky about it, but no,
Yeah.
she's out, and he's
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
standing there staring at a fucking wall, like fuck.
Like I feel like for me personally, at least with kind of, I don't know, just any media I watch, it's like I don't necessarily need it to have like a storybook beginning, middle, and end
Sure.
kind of
Mhm.
situation. But I feel like at least with this episode, the way it left me hanging, it just was like, oh, okay, I guess we're gonna leave it there.
Yeah, you got the
Like
twist, but you
that.
didn't really get much resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it, I don't know. I guess in a way where like it sat with you and it was like, oh, like I actually kind of liked that.
Yeah.
It felt a little different, at least for me. I just was like, I think it felt a little too like maybe it felt like a little too different because I feel like I mean, because there have been Zone episodes where they didn't have happy resolutions for the
Oh, plenty. Yeah.
characters
Oh
necessarily,
yeah.
yeah. But I feel like with those, it's like I just don't remember this like almost like empty like feeling, I
Yeah,
guess,
that's
where
a
I'm
great.
like,
That's a great
Yeah.
way to put it.
It
yeah,
kind
Because it
where
was
I'm
just
just
kind of like
kind of
there
like,
was. You felt like there was
what
more
am
of
I
a
gonna say for this
resolution.
episode? You know? But I don't know. I guess that sort of feeling is just sort of like, oh, I don't know how to like I don't know how to feel. I don't know like
But it's kind of
any
realistic
thoughts about it. It is realistic for
within
sure.
the
And it's
confines of the story.
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know.
And
I just don't know how I necessarily feel about that with this. Like that kind of
I
uncertainty about where I even like would fall in line with this episode on the ranking definitely has been leave me a little conflicted in a way where I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't know where I'm like, I don't know where to put it.
That's okay.
I
I don't
can
know
say
what to
that
feel.
I've spent a week because I watched this last week,
Uh-huh.
more than a week now, a week and a day, to think about it, and
So
like I
eight
was like
days.
I did like. Thank you. I I've had time to think about it, and I will say this above many other episodes we watched. A lot of the episodes we watched, especially more recently, some were good. Not to say they weren't good, but
Mm-hmm.
kind of we watch it or I watch it, we do our thing, and I just kind of move on. I don't really think about it
Yeah.
much.
Mm-hmm.
This one it keeps coming up in my head, and I was kind of looking forward to talking about it because it was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want every Twilight Zone to end this way, but
Oh
I like
yeah.
that this one did
Mm-hmm.
because it made it the different one, the outlier. And I think that was, if every episode was like this, I'd have an issue with it. But this one doing it and it being a bit more realistic and having a different approach to their ending, still having the twist, but leaving me just like what? Like I like that. I like that about this episode, and it has had me thinking. Like I mean, over the past week here or there, I like pop in my head and I think about this episode, and I really haven't done that with the Twilight Zone episode in quite a while. Like really thought about it beyond this that we do here,
Mhm.
like a lot over a course of a week. But this one really has done it. I liked this episode. I never really said that. I really liked this episode, and it's a fairly simple episode. I mean, it's a pretty. This seems like an idea the basic idea somebody had, wrote it down on a napkin, and was like, here's my 2-sentence idea. Man goes away, he's going to be old when they come back. Instead, she freezes herself and he decides to do this, bam, at the end. And everything else is just kind of like fluff, but all the fluff worked. All the fluff made that in the end, because all the fluff, if you will, was their relationship building, which was minimal, but they did such a good job at making it convincing that when this happened, it was kind of impactful, except for the fact that she just walked the fuck off. But that is my
Well-
one thing that I keep getting hung up on, is that how she left. So she could, I mean, not even like a one time being like, no, it's okay, we'll make it work. It's okay. And have him just kind of be like, no. He didn't even have to spell it out and be like, no, I'm not going to take your youth from you.
G-O
I want you to
means
have your
go.
life.
Right. And that
Yeah,
could
I
have been
just wanted him to be
Serling
like-
writing this as well, though. Like and I know we always talk about studio interference, but this is maybe the one time where there wasn't studio interference as far as how they played it. It was. I agree. I don't think that it's a case where there should have been at least one short bit of that scene that kind of gave that thing. I don't know.
But-
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, had they done that, had they just changed, like had her rebut and be like, no, and then have him, I wouldn't even, like I said, I wouldn't even want him to say, I'm not going to steal your youth from you.
But he could just say no.
He
I'm
could just
not
be
doing
like,
that.
no, and we just see it in his face. And maybe the general's even like, if she walks off and she just kind of like walks off in tears or upset, and the general's like, why'd you do that? And we just see it in his face. We know why. We don't
Right.
need him to say it. Had they done that, it would have been fulfilling for sure. But I do wonder, I think that would have been the thing that would have made this ending. It still would have been very impactful and fulfilling, but I don't think it would have left me as empty feeling in the end,
No,
like I
fair.
am now. Not empty, but like Alex
Right.
was saying. I think
You
that the
said
ending
empty.
would have been more.
I think maybe if there was just
conventional.
a bit more dialogue between them.
Yeah,
Like
something.
even if there was just like a few more lines exchanged between the both of them in that moment, I feel like maybe I wouldn't have that kind of empty feeling.
Yeah.
Because at least for an episode, like, I don't know, seeing about the parallel and how they were establishing Shed and everything. It's like in episodes like that, it's like I don't mind them getting a little wordy and like allowing the audience to follow along with what they're aiming at necessarily. And I feel like with certain episodes like this where so much of it is visual but they don't necessarily like tell it, I don't know, it's kind of a weird balance between show and tell, at least with the Twilight Zone, that I've noticed. And I feel like this is one of those episodes where it begins to show and tell pretty well, and then in like the first half, and then in the second half I feel like they are like, okay, like I think we told enough, and then they kind of show what they want to show for the second half, but then it's like
Yeah.
there isn't necessarily that, but then it's like they're missing out on just like informing the audience on like, oh, this is what we're going for and this is what we're trying to nail.
But
So,
I think
I guess,
that
but I don't
people
know.
would, and some people like who listen to this might be like, well, no, that is why I told her to go away. And I'm like, okay, I can get
Mhm.
behind that, but I don't feel like, and I understand that, but I don't feel like the show did a very good job just in that last moment of
Mhm.
conveying that to us. Once again, I don't want them to have him like talk off into the ether and be like, don't want to steal her youth from her. I did this. I will make this one final sacrifice for her because our love is so great that I want her to be free, or some shit like that. I don't need to do that. I just needed, one more no, and her like one more just like, rebuttal about no, we can make this work or something like that. That would have been it.
Or
That
even
would've
a
been
parting
perfect.
word that's like, hey, like, I'll never forget you,
Yeah,
or
something.
I don't know,
Yeah.
like
He was
I'm
looking at you, kid.
be like, yeah, or like all right then,
She
like
should have said it though, not him. He
I'm
should
Yeah.
have
going to
just turned
live
away.
life and like always like
I love you. I know.
cherish you in a way,
Yeah.
or like I don't
Yeah.
know, even if
Agreed.
she maybe hypothetically like, I don't know, if there was like a quick cut to like her getting married and having a baby and like maybe naming that baby after Stansfield or whatever, like even like something like that, I think maybe, I mean that
Mhm.
would then borderline into being like more of an hour-long episode versus the 30
Yeah.
minutes.
Well, it would have been better than the
I-
pure love thing from the colonel or the
yeah,
general.
yeah, I would say. But I think this is also one of those. Yeah, I guess too. Like I know we've talked about like whether certain premises work within like 30 minutes or an hour. And I do wonder if maybe this episode could have flourished a little more with just a bit more fluff. Like if
I-
it was towards
Yeah.
that hour mark. Maybe not. It's just a hypothetical. Or like maybe if it was like, I don't know, like 40 minutes instead of 30.
I think
Maybe it could have
that there's story there to
lowered a
be
bit,
told.
but I don't know.
I just
Mhm.
don't know if it's.
At
I
least
think it
with
would
what
have
they
felt
were
a little
going
too
for the
loose at
episode,
that point.
I don't think maybe like the way they executed it could have worked within an hour.
Yeah,
But if they took like the general premise and then went from there to maybe fill it out to an hour, I do wonder
I think they definitely
how
could
that
have
would be.
stretched out the part of them getting to know each other, like the dinner and all
Mhm.
that. They
Yeah.
could have gotten
Yeah.
some more time out of that if it was a longer episode, and
Yeah.
probably built on their, especially with those two's just natural chemistry, could have made it, strengthened it, made it a little bit more. So yeah, I guess they could have added maybe 5 to 8 minutes in the beginning, and then maybe another few minutes there at the end or something, and it could have been stretched out to 40-ish minutes, 50 minutes.
That would have been too much, I think.
Yeah, I think it would have been pushing it for what they were, because the story they were basically trying to tell is the conundrum is he'll be old, she'll be young, or he'll be young, she'll be old, but then they come back and oh, it's the reverse. So I mean, that's ultimately what they wanted to get to. And that is ultimately what they achieved. So they achieved what they were setting out to do. As much as I'm bitching about the ending, I wish they had done this and I wish they had done that and nailed this and that. And
I
da,
feel
da,
like
da, da,
arguably
da.
I've been venting more about the ending.
Well,
Now
because
you're
that-
both bitching, but that's okay. That's why we're here. We're here to discuss the ins and
Yeah.
outs of this.
it's my only I hesitate to call it a complaint. It's my only comments on the episode are with that
It's
ending
constructive,
bit
I'd
right
say,
there.
from both of you.
But like I said,
Okay.
man, if they did change it, I think that's one of the things that made the ending so memorable and impactful, that it was just so different and kind of left you there hanging with it. It's like, hey, this happened. That kind of sucks. That's it. And I mean that made the episode more impactful for me and made it stick with me because of the way it ended. So if they had given me more, I don't know. I still would have enjoyed the episode, but I don't know. It probably wouldn't have stuck out as much. They just left you there hanging, dude staring at the wall, and she walked off to go on with her life. And that sucks. But sometimes life sucks.
I will say, so I had two real quick thoughts. One, in my notes I wrote down, he's a dick, but he's also pragmatic. Like the way he kind of let it go, it could be construed as being quite, you're not even giving this a chance. You've been waiting for this for so long. How could you not want to do this? But on the other side, he knew what he had been through. He had a lot of time to think through stuff. And, all of that was tossed out the window when he saw that she wasn't the same age.
Well, I think that
I think pragmatic
like
is
to
a good word to describe his personality. for
I
sure.
would
think
agree.
that the way I took it is he does it when it was going to be him and she was already old. Like if he got back and he was whatever, 31 and she was 66 or whatever,
Mhm.
he would have looked at it like, I'm okay with this because she got to live her life. She had her
Right.
youth. She did whatever she did. She lived a full life. And now I'm with her in the
Mhm.
golden years. I'll be with her here at the end. Hopefully, unless she got married. You know what I'm saying? But
It definitely gives
Um,
like oh, you know what I was thinking? It definitely gives off you know how in Captain America he gets frozen?
Oh yeah, Peggy
And then
Carter.
he comes back and then
yeah.
is around Peggy Carter at that older age, but obviously it's like, you know. I
They're
mean, it's a bit
dancing.
more of like, teleporting through time and shit towards around that. So it can be kind of gray as far
Sure.
as like how I guess their bond is kind of continued in a more present past situation. But nevertheless, I think that's a good example of like how to do that sort of thing well. I mean, then again, it was fleshed out over the course of quite a few movies,
Several, yeah,
series of
exactly.
comics,
Yeah.
sort of thing, and like, and like at least for Captain America, like that was his love interest. So, I mean,
Yeah.
who's to say?
Well, I thought when he came back and he was old and she was young, he viewed this as another act of selflessness by saying, you know what, I spent all that time. This should be his prize,
Yeah.
And now it's even better because it's younger. But I don't think he wants to take. He feels like, well, if I come in here and do this now, she's young. She still has her life ahead of her. What kind of life does she have with this old man?
Right.
So I think
I'm just wondering with,
he's looking at it like that.
I think at least with taking on a mission like he did, I mean, arguably, I feel like it was driven by selfishness more than selflessness. At least in my opinion. At
Taking
least
the
the way it
mission?
was. Yeah, but I
Well,
think
when he
it's
took it, they said he didn't have anybody. Like he was like, like he had no family, he had no connections, no relations, nothing like that, and he was
Mhm.
just kind of like this loner. So that's one of the reasons they went with him because he's
Mhm.
like, I mean, I ain't got nobody, so
which is
And
fair.
clearly
Who
he's
cares?
not
I
needing
don't know.
somebody. Like
Yeah.
he's kind of a guy that doesn't
'Cause-
mind being alone.
he
But I
met
feel
her
like even when
right
he
after
had
he agreed to it.
somebody, he then was like,
Man, I'll find somebody when I get back.
nah, babe. My career ventures
Well,
are the priority. I
You
mean,
know what,
I'm
this-
just kind
the
of like
power of
I'm kind of
love.
just establishing like a potential argument
oh
for
no,
whether
absolutely.
he was like selfish or selfless.
I
in
will.
a
I will tell
way,
you this, and
But
this
I
is
wouldn't know what it's like to be an astronaut either. So
Well, I
No.
think that this was supposed to
know.
be like because he has always been kind of. I gathered he's always been kind of a loner. He's never really had anybody. Who he did
Mhm.
had, he probably wasn't super close to. Now he truly doesn't have anybody. So he's always been him, not necessarily in a selfish way. I just gathered that it was kind of like he
It's
just
an
hadn't had
independence
anything.
thing.
He's always been just work, work, work. He's had no one else, so he's doing this thing. But now, for the first time, he meets this woman who like gets this spark going in him, and now he does have someone. He has something to care about so much that he's willing to sit in a ceramic box in space for 40 years, staring at the wall.
But is it established that Sandra is just waiting for the 40 years until he comes back to then continue the relationship?
Well, they
Kind of
say
implied.
she said that she
Yeah,
does
'cause if
say that when you
it's-
get back, I'll be waiting for you. So yeah, it's implied. Of course,
Yeah.
he's probably thinking. I mean, yeah, you say that, but a lot happens in 40 years. Maybe you meet somebody.
Yeah.
I hope
But I
she
feel like
did
maybe
tonight.
that could have been like better communicated, at least with dialogue that's like, oh yeah, like don't like that kind of thing of like letting her go and enjoy life
Don't hook up
without
with
him, I think
anybody.
could have
Well,
been
Well,
This
here's
thing called
I don't
Tinder is
know.
going to come up. Stay away.
here's where I come at this, and just given the fact that you're coming off of World War II, and Serling obviously had a lot with that. You look at back at that time, there were so many people that, like, on the eve of war, before guys shipped out, they would go out to the bars
Very
with
much so.
somebody. And obviously this is not quite the same thing, because as we've kind of, I basically figured that they had whatever time it took for him to train and do all that stuff. So it could have been several months, it might have been a year, it could have been, a few weeks, whatever. They had the time to kind of get to know each other a little bit more. But there were a lot of those engagements where they got married that the night before the guy shipped out, and they might have only met the day before, because there's no guarantee they're coming back. They wanted to live it up. They wanted that last, I suppose on the one end, it's the stability to someone to come back to, but on the other side, that one last thrill, and fuck everything, let's do the thing, kind of a deal.
Fuck everything, everybody. Yeah, my grandfather was like that. He went to World War II, and him and my grandmother got married right before he shipped out.
Right.
And apparently got married and conceived my mom. So she was born. She didn't see him till she was 4, almost 5 years old.
See, that might have been at least some of the thinking behind this. Obviously, it's not whirlwind romance where it's, next day they leave, but it is kind of in that realm.
Mm-hmm.
Not that adds perspective to whether it's selfish or not, but that might add a little bit more nuance, I guess, for the time.
No, I didn't perceive it as being like selfish. I just thought it was just a dude who didn't have anybody, never had, and had always been depended on himself and only himself. And he, ironically, right after agreeing to do this thing that's going to essentially age him or age everybody else 40 years, he meets somebody who he actually does care about. And then that's the ironic twist of all. It's like, oh, I've never had anybody, so yeah, I'll do this thing. And oh, look, now I met the love of my life right before I leave.
Be a great romantic comedy.
Well, I think that's why they mentioned irony in the closing narration, right?
Yeah. Oh, speaking of, we should probably.
Oh, that was good. That was good. You're good.
Alex, you rock. Thank you.
That's why you guys keep inviting me.
Hey, much more than that. You had a lot of
Yeah.
insight and stuff
That
too.
was a
So
I know.
fantastic segue,
yes,
I say.
it's a transition to end all
Don't mess it up
transitions.
then, Jacob.
I'll try not to because it's massive.
Yes.
Commander Douglas Stansfield. That's what she said. One of the
Damn it.
forgotten pioneers of the space age. He's been pushed aside by the flow of progress and the passage of years and the ferocious travesty of fate. Tonight's tale of ionosphere and irony delivered from the Twilight Zone. Yeah, that ionosphere almost messed me up right there. I
It
was
just
like,
looked at the 1 second to be like, what is that word?
that's not a word you read every day.
Not really,
But I do
unless you're an
know.
astronaut.
It took me
Yeah.
a minute. I was like, I just saw ION. I was like, what? You don't see a lot of words that start with that. Go ahead, Alex. Point out 10.
What?
Nothing.
So one other thought just on the kind of the that last 5 or 6 minutes. At one point, when Sandra comes back down and she's talking to Walters, he tries to create conversation. Then he's like, "What do you say to someone that's been asleep for 40 years?" And I kind of wonder if that kind of relates back to Sandra and Stansfield, as far as like when they remet, like they're
Yeah.
at very different places now.
We think that he's telling her, what are you going to say to somebody who's been, maybe he's actually saying either for himself to her or he's saying about Stansfield. What, I mean, you've been asleep for 40 years. What's he going to say to you?
I mean,
It's like-
clearly it wasn't communicated well enough.
No, it came to
Clearly
mind
not.
when we were talking, and I don't know, because it would be a thing. Like, it's like when you travel, like you go off and travel, and regarded, obviously, Sandra was asleep for 40 years, and she wouldn't really know the ins or outs of what modern society was really like. But being everything that Stansfield went through, yeah, he literally stared at the wall for probably large sections of the day, every single day. Like, how do you explain your experience when the other person didn't go through it? I don't know how that doesn't really relate per se, but I just, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was maybe a good point to bring up a bit, not nuance, but just additional stuff. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about and discuss on this? Sandra's
Well-
ravishing outfit when she comes out of hibernation.
Right? She's got her silver underwear. The Long Morrow is also the title of a season 7 episode of Gilmore Girls, one of my wife's
Ooh.
favorite shows, where Logan gives Rory a gift inspired by his favorite Twilight Zone episode, The Long Morrow.
Aw.
From what
For
I've seen of that
Rory
show,
is the one of the lead characters
Yeah,
and
she's
is
the
Lauren
girl,
Graham's
Lexa-
daughter in the show.
Beidelman? Beetle?
I don't know
the
her actual name.
Lexus.
Is
She's in
it?
Sin City. I don't remember. That's where I knew her from before.
Alexis Bledel.
Oh, yep.
What?
There you go.
Is that how you say it? I don't know.
Well,
Whatever.
it says
That
like
chick.
Bledeo.
Yeah, Alexis.
Alexis.
All right.
Hacking up a hairball there.
But yes.
Yeah, where did it rank Triv?
So
Taste in Time Magazine or whatever.
just as a Time magazine.
Time Magazine. Bro, that's nuts.
All right. So any just with the conversation that we've had and kind of the everything else, do you guys have any ideas where Paste and IMDb would have put this roughly?
I mean, I feel like I would put this more like middle of the road,
Yeah, I
like
bet they
mid
put
to
it around the
low.
middle.
So I'm
80s.
assuming
So,
it'd probably be
70s,
around the
80s.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so there's 135 episodes altogether. Paste put this at 33.
135. You mean
No,
156?
No, 33. 33.
Oh yeah, Paste. We agree for once.
Yeah, and they outrightly said that if you have a dry eye, if you can't see the romance of this, then there's something clearly wrong with you. And it's like, dude, that's
agree.
a little personal.
Well, okay, clearly there's something wrong with me then.
No.
All
no,
right. Thank
no.
you so much, Pace, for just calling me out on being single, all right?
No, but you
What do you want from me? I give
I-
my clear opinion, you put it at fucking 33. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll be around 90 like you drive or whatever. Sure. Okay. Thank you so much. Maybe I do need love in my life.
Yeah,
We'll go with
overrated.
33.
But I love myself.
There you go. That's huge.
And the
There
way
you
I
go.
love myself, I tell myself, hey, this episode should be in the 90s. And it's
Yes.
fine.
Oh man. All
We
right.
love
So
you.
That's fine.
IMDb. Yeah, same. Absolutely. IMDb put this at 78.
Okay.
And see, I
So
don't think
IMDb
it
has
should
more
be
of their
that
shit
high.
together.
Nah, well, I mean, to each his own, but I don't think it should be in the 70s or 80s, but I figured that's where they put it. So I'm not surprised by that. I do think it should be lower. I really like this episode.
You guys
As
want to
much
know
as I
what else
bitched
is
about the
around
ending,
it?
I really liked it.
Like what other episodes are kind of in that same vicinity?
Sure.
Just a second here. I gotta
Or
re-pull
at least
that up.
where are the other ones that are in the 30s? Is my question.
All right. So for the Long Morrow, we've got 30. Oh wow. So 31 is the Silence guy that cuts his vocal cords to win the bet.
Yeah.
He lives in
Oh
the
yeah,
glass
yeah,
house
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
32 is the Big Tall Wish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like Big Tall Wish.
I like
There-
Big Tall Wish.
33 is the Long Morrow. 34 is Will the Real Alien or the Real Martian Please Stand Up?
Okay.
And 35 is Night of the Meek.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah,
And-
Big Tall Wish. I thought was. Let me clarify. I like what Big Tall Wish was trying to do, and what it did do, like behind the
Mhm.
scenes.
Mhm.
I didn't like the story. I thought it was just kind of
That's fair.
bland.
I mean, I liked how they executed on it personally. Like
I like
and-
the
I enjoyed it.
execution and the relevance of the episode. I thought was a good thing. I mean, I was like actually very surprised, especially the time period and all that. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
this-
for sure.
that's
Mhm.
really cool. I just wish they had picked a better story for that, because
Yeah.
it wasn't bad. It was
Like,
just
did
kinda,
you prefer like a different occupation choice instead of him being a boxer? Would that maybe have changed?
no, it was just the whole story. It was just kind of like it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. It was just kind of
Mm.
I didn't.
To each
I say I
their
didn't
own.
like it. I didn't. I didn't hate it. I'm just kind of middle of the road with it. It's just kind of like I wanted to like it more, given its relevance, because I thought that was really cool, of all the things they did like with that episode. But it just the story didn't resonate with me. It just was kind of like middle of the road.
Also, for reference, I apologize. I didn't get my wording right on this. So the Twilight Zone isn't necessarily known for romances, but if this one doesn't tug at your heartstrings, check your pulse. That's their kind of go-to thing. So I apologize. I misquoted that. Okay, and as far as the ones around IMDb, so 75 is Queen of the Nile. I don't think we've
I don't think
hit
we've
that
done
one
that.
yet. No,
Queen
we
of the
haven't.
Nile was that hot. That's okay.
But these are all 7.5, so they're all roughly like equal, not equal, kind of.
That's fair.
Actually, there's at least 10. No, more than that. Holy crap! There's a ton of them that are right at 7.5. My guess it's like 7.52 or 7.55, or that's probably how they came out this way. But
That makes sense. I think a lot of entertainment is right around that 7.5
yeah.
area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got Passerby, you've got the Self-Improvement, which I don't think we've done yet.
Whoa.
That's the next episode.
Passerby
Passerby is 79.
Don't
and
you fucking dare.
Long Marrow
You
is
can't
Long
deal,
Marrow's 88
you can't
or
deal
78.
with more takes.
How can you cannot argue the Passerby for me? Am I thinking of the right one? That's the one with Abe Lincoln in the end, right?
Yes, it is.
That episode is so fucking boring. It's so ridiculous. I
Stop.
hate that
That's
episode.
not true.
Oh, Jake, you want to know what else is
Oh,
that?
shit.
Is that 7.5? A Piano In.
The house.
Are you done yet?
Yeah, so we've got
I didn't have a lot of
numbers
preparation.
66 through 82 are all 7.5.
I thought you were going to say
Yeah.
Perchance to Dream.
You know,
No.
honestly, I feel like even for the middle of the road episodes, like they're still good,
Oh yeah,
like episodes of TV that you can like enjoy subjectively.
I would agree.
So that
100%.
definitely checks out.
Yeah, no,
But yeah, I
absolutely.
cannot believe you thought the passersby was boring.
Not only did I think it was boring, I thought it was bad.
Oof. Shots
That one I
fired.
did think was
I know
bad.
Zachary would agree with you, but also like I don't agree with you. So
But we all kind of
I found
agreed on
enjoyment
this
in that episode more than
That is true.
y'all. And you know what? That's fine.
But you know what? I appreciate the fact that you liked it. And I'm
Aw.
happy that it brought you joy and happiness in your heart.
Do you have any other takes that I might just be like, all right?
But it sucked.
Oh. Alex, I can give you Jake's
me.
address.
You know,
if
any
you want to
anyway,
fly
Jake,
across country.
where would you place this episode?
That is a good
Start
question.
off
So
with you, I guess.
so
Me,
generally,
I never start that.
all right. So generally,
Well,
I'm gonna,
I guess I'm making you start today. Go
all
ahead.
right, I'm gonna
Pick a
start
number.
this. I'm gonna start this in, but like halfway in between, just as a good starting place between Paste and IMDb, because it seems like a fair middle ground kind of a deal, and I'm not very good at this whole thing. So I'm gonna start it at 57, roughly.
What's your thing with 57? You all the time right around 57.
No, I always start at 3, but I'm not doing that this time because Jake's or
That's not
Nick's
real.
not here, and I can't make fun of him. So
See, my
42.
starting place is
42. Well, you just
42.
want to do 42 because of Douglas Adams.
Shut up. No
This is
way. You
Anastasia-
wanted him up for Chance to Dream.
Yeah.
No fucking way.
I'm not surprised, actually.
Oh my god.
I mean, in all honesty, I always say that, but I do think this is better than Perchance Century. I mean, I think a
Okay,
lot
and
of things are.
here's the thing. So conversation wise, and I guess I know conversation does drive a lot of our choices.
Uh-huh.
I can honestly say like the pacing was solid in this. I could appreciate the fact that it is kind of an outlier in what it did in this episode. The ending definitely caught you off guard. And I guess I hadn't seen it, and I wish I hadn't been spoiled by actually looking at shit. I don't know. I don't know I can put it. I don't know that I can put it above Perchance to Dream, though. Like, I'm in. I know, Alex, you're thinking 90s.
Their waterworks from my yawn coming out. So I just want you to know that
Sure.
where you place this is so important to me. And how I decide to be on the show. So take into consideration my emotions.
We absolutely will.
I mean, I could be a real asshole and say 130.
Damn, why would you do that? Did you guys not like this episode?
I did. I
thought we
thought
liked
this
this
was
episode.
yeah, it is a solid episode, but if it creates more controversy and gets us the same kind of thing like we did on Probe 7, then yeah, absolutely.
Nah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just have to randomly be like, Uncle Simon, who's he? And then people are gonna be like, just get to the fucking point of what you're saying. JK, actually, this is great. Oh my god.
All right, I'm looking here. All right, so I'm just gonna start at 57 because it's 90 years without slumber.
I would prefer watching 90
Okay.
years over this personally.
Anyway,
But that's just my
am I
silly
still
little
in
opinion.
charge? Hang on. Can I mute you?
What? No, you can't. Well, shit, you probably can because
I can.
God damn it! You bastard! Don't you dare mute her.
Oh, how do I unmute you?
You hit the unmute button up in the upper right-hand
It says
corner, you
ask to
dumbass.
Oh, there we go. Okay. It said ask to unmute. I didn't know that would work. I'm never in charge. You're getting fucked up now. I have the power.
I don't know why the power went to him. Like, Alex, you were the first one in here besides me. Like when I went out, power should have gone to
I
you.
have no idea. I just think this Zoom call doesn't like me, but it's okay.
I'm just assuming
Honestly,
it didn't like me because
because I got muted. Mute's at 99.
Ooh.
I'm gonna put that above mute. And pitch 99.
Where's that
Ooh.
button again?
It's not gonna change the outcome of this shit. If you
Well,
keep
there-
muting her, I'm gonna make it go lower.
There is a remove button.
Don't you dare.
If I
Okay.
never come on this podcast again, I hope
Let's-
that Jacob Anders is the one who's fully responsible for said decision.
No. Okay, so in all seriousness, at 57, 90 years without slumber. Which one was that?
That one was the one where the
You
guy
watched
is
it
like,
3 or so episodes ago.
it's the one
It
with
was
the clock.
the one that you resonated with the most, my guy. How do you not remember?
I did.
Like the guy, like he's got the clock and he keeps winding it because he thinks he's gonna die if the clock doesn't wind.
Oh yeah.
There's no
Okay, yeah.
fucking way. You don't remember the plot of that
I remember the episode. It's the names. I don't always remember the
I was
names.
like, oh yeah, I was talking to Triv, being like, oh yeah, he like really resonated with that one. You know?
just-
And all of a sudden, you're like, what's that episode again?
I always say that.
Why are
Because
you the
in
host?
Why
of
do I
this
sound like a
call?
90-year-old man
I
when you did
don't
that? What's that
understand.
episode again? You made me
This
sound
is
like the fucking
absurd.
penguin. What's that episode again?
Oh dear God.
Wow.
Guys, we've kind of gone off the rails, I think.
Okay. 2.
No, you're not putting it
No.
at 2.
Nope.
Are you
Number
out
50
of your mind?
Jesus Christ. Shut your faces.
Shut your
50
face.
56 is 2.
Oh, yeah.
No,
The
it's
episode is called 2.
Yeah, he's right.
I was saying 2.
As in the episode.
I would rather watch this than 2. Not
oh
numero
my
2.
God. The way you...
Numero dos.
No, all you said was 2.
I said so. 2. And you guys like,
I was like, you're nuts.
it's like that Kermit the Frog meme.
How'd that go again? Can we make a meme out of that while you're doing this?
Anyway. Showdown with Rance McGraw, Grew. I like this more than that. Quality of Mercy.
That's where isn't it the guy in like he takes over the body of like the opposing side, doesn't he? No, that's not a quality of Mercy, isn't it? Like
No, that's the one where they're in Iwo Jima or something, isn't it? Is that Quality of Mercy? That's not Quality of Mercy. Quality of Mercy is
yeah,
not
no,
that
that's
long ago.
Quality of Mercy, I think. Like you
Oh,
see
yeah,
him
yeah, yeah,
and
where
they're
he's in the
taunting
cave.
them, and then he goes over to the
yeah.
I think.
Yeah. It was Leonard Nimoy and
Was it Leonard Nimoy?
not Dean Cain, Dean
Dean-
Stockwell.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a
honestly
hard
like
time with
one
this
better than
one.
that one.
Like I know I always have a hard time, but I don't know. Like Alex, I know you're quite a lot lower. Where is your kind of end all be all place?
I guess I'll be nice and I'll try to spread the love, I guess. I I would say I'm scared. I would say because I brought up the parallel. And I'd say as much as I remember more about the parallel than the Long Morrow, I do feel that the chemistry in this episode was superior than what I recall from the parallel. And for that, I will say that it can be, in my mind, it can be like 78 or 79.
Okay.
But I see it above the parallel.
All right, so in that kind of upper 70s ish.
Yes.
And Jake is down in like lower 50s.
And that's
No,
higher than my initial
No,
99,
100%.
which I said as a joke.
No, I understand.
I would honestly say take Per Chance to Dream out of the equation. I would probably say 46.
Okay, but like,
Replacing
okay,
Person
if
or
you
Persons
really want it
Unknown.
at 46, you need to fight for it.
I would agree with that.
I think you really do
willing
need
to
to
do that.
convince me that it should be that high, personally. Maybe I am just missing something because of, I guess, this episode being a little more, I guess, romantic than I guess it came across to me. I don't know. I don't fucking know. But
Honestly,
I do think that if you really do want it, I can give it to you this one time to have it above Per Chance to Dream if you can convince me
That's below
that it's
Per Chance
worth
to
being
Dream.
above.
I think
is above
you
Per
guys
Chance.
always
Per Chance
talk
to
differently
Dream
though.
is
He's talking 46 is where he's talking about.
43 is
putting
Per
it.
Chance to Dream. I was like being honest and just taking Per Chance to Dream out of the equation and saying that if I did have to pick a place, honestly, I would probably say 46, which is
Okay, but
where
you still
Persons
need
or
to
Persons
fight for
Unknown
it
is.
to be 46. I'm willing to hear you out. I will mute myself personally so you
I
can
can do
talk.
it.
I will not interrupt you.
I
But
can do
you
it.
have to convince me that. Okay, I will do it myself. I am a
No,
woman.
you
who can do things on my
you
own.
don't mute
I have
yourself, Alex.
autonomy.
Don't
No,
mute
you
yourself.
don't mute yourself.
I can talk loud. It's okay.
No, Alex, don't mute yourself. There's
Yeah.
no reason for that.
I mean, what? I mean, okay. So,
All right,
so I
start.
have to between 46 and what'd you say? You said it's 78.
Yes.
77, 78, yeah.
So I've got to like go through 30 episodes and prove why it's better than these 30
I'm
episodes
not
one
saying
at a time.
okay. I'm not saying you have to go through the individual episodes. I'm just saying convince me that this episode is on par as far as like the quality, rewatchability, etc. that I feel that the top 50 episodes of the Twilight Zone should offer. Because my top 50 would look very different than this list.
Well,
And
and
the top
that's
50
Well,
are
that's
ones that
everybody.
I find, and like I
think
personally
ours looks
am
different
working
than
on,
this list.
okay, but I personally am working on like a top 50 list, including the initial 30 that I talked about on top of 20 episodes that I didn't talk about previously. And
Nice.
with that top 50, my personal top 50, it would look very different than here. So in a way, I would consider the top 50 truly some of the best of the Twilight Zone because there are 156 episodes. It's like this is like the top third of what the series offers. So in that sort of reasoning, I just want to hear you out on why you feel this would be top 50 material.
Okay, so first things first, on that, as you said, your list is very different than ours. Understandable. That's fine. No problem. I
You
respect
say it every episode, but yes.
But
well, and our top real quick, our top 50, our whole list is just as much built around the conversations. Like there's a lot of stuff
Yeah.
that ends up in
Yeah.
weird places because of conversation.
and we don't have every episode included yet. But on just the top 50 and the idea behind the top 50, I'm with you. I got you. I feel you. However, since your list is so different than ours, there must inevitably be things within our top 50 right now that you think have no business being anywhere near that 50. So it's kind of like that 50 is already tainted. Also, I feel as if maybe we're placing a bit like a lot on a number. Like not so much the
Well, I'm not even saying
episodes
like a
around
number.
them,
I'm
but a
just broadly
number.
saying like at least to me, with how I guess would like hypothetically rank all the episodes, I would potentially subdivide them into like 50, like being like top 50, top 100, top 156.
Okay.
Right? Like at least that's in my mind. I look at
Cool with that.
if I narrow it down to 50 episodes that I love, would rewatch over and over again, enjoy, remember, then yeah, it's like that's at least how I'm viewing it, but I'm not saying that that's the same for everybody. I'm just saying that that's at least how I'm viewing like
No, that
the
makes
sort
sense.
of like seriousness of it being within like a top 50. Because you can easily take the episodes on the bottom and be like, okay, we can agree that they aren't the best. But at least to me, it's like, at least for me personally, like I see 50 and above, like my cutoff for like some of the best episodes that we would recommend, not only to each other potentially through conversation, but also to like a broader audience or whoever we're talking to who might have a piqued interest in the Twilight Zone, regardless of this being through the podcast or just in real life.
Cool.
That's at least where I'm coming from. So
Totally with you there. However, I think that is something you would want to that saying, oh, I have issue putting it below 50 because of that mindset. Totally cool with that. Fine. I understand that with your list. But I think that you would agree if you scanned over our top 50 right now, there's probably at least a handful of them that you don't consider aren't in your top 50. So to apply that mindset that I can't put it in the top 50 of this list, because in my mind, the top 50 is nothing but the best. This top 50 already has things you don't consider nothing but the best. So I feel like you got to kind of look at it like a per by episode way.
No, I understand where you're coming from. I'm just saying that like, at least to me, it's like, I do feel that this is worth like, at least opening up the idea of like, I'm at least trying to think of it more holistically, like regardless of whatever the fuck, like our lists or this list looks like. I'm just kind of coming from like when we talk about the series as a whole at the end of this, like would this be an episode that would be a highlight of like you talking about season 5 or even just the series as a whole necessarily? Because I know that how you view it is different than mine, but I'm willing to hear you out and like have the Long Morrow in 46, you know, because I do think it's a solid episode, and I do want to, and like I definitely heard you out with like how you enjoyed being caught off guard with how the ending was. But I'm just wondering like what makes this episode, like at least from your perspective, it's like what would make you place it in the position that it's in.
Okay, I'll get to that. But I
Yeah.
want to add one more thing. We also have 20-ish, 22 more episodes to go.
We're there's 13 episodes left, or is it
Was it 13?
13?
We're on episode 15, and I think in
thought there were
episode 5
37
they're like
right,
35.
right. Sorry, 20. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
So
17-ish.
potentially at 46, 7, whatever I said. Honestly, 47 is where I'd be okay with it. I can't. Yeah, 46 is where I was presuming.
Yeah, you said 46.
saying.
Yeah.
Four of those 20 some odd episodes come in under 50, and they knock it out of the 50. So, but all that aside, we're getting caught up on the 50.
Right. And I was just going to
Okay,
say, we're all going to have a different way of viewing this. And like, I look at this list and I'm never much of a ranking person. So I know that there's a lot of times that we will just like say, okay, this one is a very much middle of the pack episode. Okay. Cut off for kind of good and bad is kind of here. Okay. Let's kind of go with that. And you guys both bring up good points in this respect. It's not worth the,
Yeah, I look at it like I'm with Triv on that, and I look at and I do look at the numbers as far as like when we say, hey, where are we going to put it? And it is kind of like Triv said, like, yeah, it's middle of the road, or no, this is a really bad one, or the kind of like from my starting point. Okay, like out of 156 on a scale of 1 to 156, where do I think this falls just number wise? And then I start there. And we were in the 50s, and I kind of like whittled my way down. And when I get to that point, what I do is I just start looking at the episodes, and I'm like, would I rather watch this than that? Would I rather watch this than that? And as it hones in, and I'm kind of like, oh, I'm not really sure which one I'd want to watch more. Or I start just thinking about the individual aspects of the episode. Hey, this one was more emotionally impactful, or this one would have better execution, or I just like the overall story better. I really just try and like hone it down to the actual episodes within the vicinity of the area that I'm looking at. And I just keep going down until I get to a point where I'm like, I don't know. And like, that's what I did here. I started with 57 where Triv said, I was just working my way down, and I was like, I liked it more than that. I liked it more than that. I liked it more than that. And then I got to A Penny for Your Thoughts. And I know that's not the most well-liked episode in the world. We have it at 45, but something about that episode I really enjoyed. And I was kind of like, yeah, I'm good with that. That's where I sit, because I mean, I look at all these other episodes. I won't go over them all, but like in the 70s, we have things like Hocus Pocus and Frisbee, Execution, Praise of Pip, and After Hours, which I thought that was kind of cool, actually. Passage for Trumpet, things like that. These are decent episodes, but I feel like this one elevated itself and above those emotionally with the chemistry of the characters and their performances, and just the idea, the twist. It was so simple. It was a very simple thing, but I thought that they did a really good job of filling the time. It never felt like it was rushed, even though they did have like a massive time jump. I didn't ever feel like it was really rushed, but I didn't feel like it was dragging either. I was engaged the whole entire time. And a lot of these other ones, I could say there's at least a few minutes there that I'm kind of like, okay, move it along, or, you know, they could have dealt with some more time. So that's why I feel like it kind of outpaces all those ones in the 70s for me personally. And when you get to the 60s, you've got like Mirror Image, which I never thought was great. Odyssey of Flight 33.
That's where they go with the dinosaurs.
Yeah, I always get that one mixed up with
William Shatner.
one of the other ones. No, I don't remember. Mind and Matter and 30 Fathom Great. These are definitely getting more into my wheelhouse, but still all of them, I did like Probe 7 over and out. But this one just seemed more impactful to me. And really, like I said earlier, maybe it was just me. This one, a week later, I was still thinking about it. I can honestly say it's been a while since the Twilight Zone has really like stayed with me. Now, granted, maybe it was because I watched it a week earlier and I didn't get this, where we're talking about it and kind of airing all that and getting it off my chest. And maybe after tonight, I'll never think about this fucking episode again. I don't know. But I do know that for the past week, I have been thinking about it. And I've been like, I really want to talk about that episode. And as I thought about it more and more, I liked the episode more and more. I had my complaints. It wasn't perfect. The ending was kind of bittersweet. Alex, I think you said that. When I say that, I mean, like, I see how it could have been better. But then again, I like the way they did it because it just made it stand out. And you get into like the 50s and you have 2, which I've never really thought super highly of 2. Ransom Grew is...
Well, it had Charles Bronson in it. It had to be good.
Well, and he was shirtless. I know
Oh,
Nick
yeah.
loves that. So, but he's not here to defend shirtless Charles Bronson.
I mean, I could defend it for him if we absolutely needed to.
You know,
Shirtless Charles Bronson is good. End of argument.
In his image, kick the can. I've never been a kick the can fan. And I know these things are... some of these things I'm saying, I'm not a big fan of this, I'm not a big fan of that. When I say that, I usually am talking about an episode that a lot of other people do like, but me personally, I didn't like it. And that might be one of the things too, is right here in the 50s, there's a few episodes I'm not a huge fan of, but I understand have a lot of fans. So maybe that's why the 50s are kind of soft for me. And then I get over here to the upper 40s and I feel like quality starts ramping up a bit more. You got like The Hunt, which that was one I almost got hung up on. And I was like, kind of like The Hunt. I think The Hunt would outpace this one a little bit, and the Most Unusual Camera, I really like that episode because it's just kind of goofy, though I know that's one that's kind of frowned upon by some.
It's one of my favorites.
I love how it does something different, but when I kept on, I would think about these episodes, I would think about this one, it just seemed like a much tighter experience. It didn't seem like they trimmed all the fat here. Like it was... And there's not a lot going on in this episode, but for me, it kept me very intrigued the whole time, even though a lot of it is just this dude in a box talking and having flashbacks. And granted, like many Twilight Zone episodes, the ending sells it. If it wasn't for the ending, it would just be kind of like, okay, this is interesting. But the ending is kind of the big kicker that makes everything else well worth it. But, you know, like I said, I'm not going to go through every single episode, but then I got up to A Penny for Your Thoughts, and that's where I kind of like landed with it. That's why I landed at 46. I mean, like I said, the top 50 thing, there's nothing guaranteeing that this is going to stay in the top 50 as far as that. I mean, we got 20 something episodes left, I think.
We've got The Mask. 13. We've got what is something at Owl Ridge?
Yeah, there is a really good chance that 4 more episodes will come along and knock this out of the top 50 anyway. But I get where you're coming from with that, with your list. Is like, you know, I'm having difficulty placing this in the top 50 because I view the top 50 as the upper echelon. The only thing I would say is on that, this list isn't necessarily that list, if you will. You know what I mean? Because like I said earlier, I'm sure there's some stuff in here in that top 50, our top 50, that you're like, what the hell is that doing there?
Well, I would add too that, like, Alex, with your list, you have a very precise, like, your blade is sharpened well, and you go through and it's all points, story, impact, all of it. We're kind of, the way that we've done stuff to this point, it's been kind of it's been based on the conversation amongst the 3 of us. It's been compromised. It's been a lot of that stuff. So it's a lot softer. Like, I would say our top, like, I think we've always held the top 15, 20 as kind of like that. Yeah. That everything kind of 50. See, I don't know that we've gone top 50 though. I think we've only ever talked.
Our top 20 has kind of been like, we felt that way about the top 20, like she's speaking about the top 50. Now, granted, we haven't done all the episodes yet, so we're not taking into consideration all 156 at this point.
Well, and I think we've kind of talked over that point quite a lot. If you're interested in my input on this, I would say I don't feel like I want to put this in the top 50 just because the episodes that I see above 50-ish are some of the ones that I hold dear. Like, I love Most Unusual Camera. I am a huge fan of No Time Like the Past. Those are episodes that to me are essentials. And I know, again, and I think we had good conversation on those bits as well. I wouldn't go down necessarily as far as 57, but I don't think I could put it at 46.
Well, I was going to say, I'm willing to compromise. I'm not like hard.
No,
it's
no,
gotta be 46.
and that's the thing is this isn't like Super Bowl. This is, but so I don't know if there's
Well, that area
somewhere.
right there that you were talking about, that is where I started to trip up something, like the 50, the 49, and the Hunt, Most Unusual Camera, No Time Like the Past. That is, I would say No Time Like the Past was where the first one that made me stop and say, okay, did I like this one more than that? So, I mean, in that lower 50s, I'm cool with that too. I'm not like,
Because there's
me.
like there's a lot of in that neck of the woods, like a world of difference and a nice place to visit. Those are some of my more higher favorites as well. Like, they're ones that I go back and watch on a regular basis because they have a lot of rewatchability. And I will say this one, for whatever it is, like, and I've said it, acting, the chemistry is incredibly good. The story is, I think, I mean, besides trade-ins and parallel, this is quite unique amongst Twilight Zone stuff. Now, is that,
really good.
yeah, is that enough to put it higher? I don't think it goes above like 53, 54. So I don't know where we go beyond that. And we've been on this for quite a while, so I don't know.
How about 55? Do I hear 55? Do I hear a 55?
I'm fine with it, but Alex, your thoughts?
I'm good with 55.
I feel like you gave in really easy there, considering earlier.
Well,
I've been listening the whole fucking time.
I know you're listening. I was just
I
expecting.
appreciate you gave basically the answer that I was like trying to ask for, basically. So I said I would hear you out, and I did. And I do agree with Trivs as well, so I wanted to hear both of you guys out. But I'm good with 55.
All right. So with that in mind, the new 55 is the Long Morrow. Number 1 is still Eye of the Beholder and likely to stay there for at least until next week. Number 35 is The Trouble with Templeton.
Number 35.
Sorry, 135, 135, not 35. That would be, God, that would be weird. 135 is The Trouble with Templeton. One. Jesus, I was waiting for someone else to do it.
Would that be
112?
112?
One
Yep.
is
112 is a piano in
the house.
I'm waiting for him to whisper one of these times.
I can't even see his fucking face.
You know what he needs is one of those funky accents we were doing earlier, like a Cajun or something, or like me trying to do a northern Wisconsin. How is he still going?
I think he's just glitching.
How do you hiss in Cajun?
I don't know.
How do you say the house in Cajun?
The house man. No, that's wrong. That is 100% the wrong accent. What the hell was that?
Yeah, well, that was like Jamaican. The house man.
I mean, I could try Jersey, but it's gonna come out Southern. I don't know how that works, but and crap. Hang on here, Nick. I'm so sorry. You're gonna have so much editing. Damn it.
He loves it.
Yeah. It'd be like, screw you and your stupid face.
Well, I know that they mentioned the next episode is the self-improvement of Salvador Ross, episode 16 of season 5. This episode is supposed to be directed by Don Siegel, and then it looks like it's based on a story of the same name by Henry Slesar. It's like SLESAR. The production code is 2612. And
Air date was January 17th of 64.
Yeah. I always forget. I forget to mention the air date because I'm like, well, we're still in 64.
I think we finish out in 64. Yeah, we finish out in 64 as well. Yeah. Alex, as always, thank you so much for coming on and putting up the dukes and kicking some ass.
Spirited conversation.
Yes, very spirited conversation. And if anyone ever tries to mute you again, I will physically drive to that location and kick some ass myself.
I literally meant that to just like click on, click off, and I couldn't figure out how to turn it off. It did. It said I like clicked it.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. It's been great.
Can you tell us what's coming up for you?
For now, I'll say youtube.com/Alex Carson is where you can find me. and maybe I'll come out with stuff in the next couple weeks. I'm gonna leave it at that.
No, that's 100% cool.
But that's a
And
maybe.
I love that.
And as per usual, you have a lot of great Twilight Zone content on your channel that people should go and binge anyway, regardless of whether something comes up in the next couple of weeks or if it's longer. Jake, how about you? How's things in the gaming sphere?
Pretty much same. Yeah, check out my channel, Retro Jake XY. I haven't released anything recently. I'm probably not going to release anything for a little bit, but I will. More stuff is coming, and I have 0 Twilight Zone stuff on my channel.
Boo.
It's all here.
Well, I would hope it would be here. That would be kind of weird if it wasn't. Make sure to check out Nick's channel, which is where we are streaming from. It's a Movie Emporium. I know he's doing Snowpiercer and as well as different movies. Keep an eye out there and make sure to be subbed and notifications on for all his good stuff. As for me, I'm in the middle of Riffstravaganza. I'm doing short form content. In October, I'm going to be doing as many Halloween type reviews as I can. And that's about it. So until next time, for Alex and Jake and myself and Nick via some other place,
The fifth
everyone
dimension
stay
of obviously.
exactly. Make sure to stay gaseous and flaming like the Stanfield Mount Everest, which was a very weird name. We'll see you next time in the Twilight Zone. Take care, y'all.
Bye.
I can do like a
Hey.
weird
No, she's on Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
Gonna serve up that there gumbo. And that just
Yeah.
sounds like Sling Blade. What the hell? God, I suck at that.
Add some of that there gumbo. It's got frog peckers in it.
Oh yeah, Derry, don't you know you gotta love that frog gumbo? It pairs real nice with a good old fashioned Pabst Blue Ribbon, you know, Derry, don't you know?
Yeah, see, Triv does the Twin Cities the best.
Oh yeah. Well, Twin Cities or the northern Wisconsin or some other random ass place in the middle of Podunky nowhere, you know, eh?
Fargo.
Oh yeah.